Hi, I'm Jerry James Stone, and in today's video, we're going to cover a lot. We're going to talk about the difference between scallions, also known as green onions, actual spring onions, chives, and green garlic. What the heck are these things? What's the difference between them? I'm going to tell you. Let's get to it. Let's just break it down. The first thing we have our scallions. That's these babies right here. They are typically cylindrical. There's no bulb on the end. They typically have the little roots on the end. They have the nice, luscious greens at the top that you can chop up and put in salads. So that is an Allium fistulosum. It's a cultivar of the onion family that's just made to grow in these delicious green onions that never ever produce a bulb. The next thing that we have is the spring onion. That's this right here. The spring onion is actually a regular common onion that's been yanked out of the ground a little early. So it never produces a full bulb. The benefit of these is that that bulb is really tender, the flavors are not as potent, so it's a little bit lighter, has some different culinary uses. You don't want to use the greens on a spring onion like you would with a scallion. So that's a completely different scenario. So that's the Allium cepa, and that's actually a just regular common onion. And spring onions can come in yellow, purple, white, whatever regular onions come in, because like I said, it's just a harvested bulb that's been pulled out a little early. Next we have chives. These are chives, right? So you've seen these in the store. Chives, the actual only herb from the onion family, the Allium schoenoprosum, does not produce a bulb. In fact, it's never even sold with one because there's no culinary use for it. It's just lopped off and you just get these tiny little sort of, needle-like greens that you can use. The thing that's great about chives is that, like I said, they're the only herb from the onion family. They're much more delicate, they're more of a garnish, whereas like with scallions, you can use them as a garnish or you can chop them up in a heartier way to use them like say in a stir fry. Chives are just made as a garnish. You want to put them on salads, on your eggs, but you definitely don't want to cook them. With green onions or scallions, you can actually do that. But they're completely different. They're an actual herb from the onion family. So I think the most confusion comes between scallions, green onions, spring onions, and chives. Now, why is there that confusion? Well, scallions, also called green onions, can be referred to as spring onions in other countries. So I think there's some confusion as to like when people are Googling things or looking for things, and just people use the word interchangeably. Scallions can commonly be referred to as green onions, spring onions, salad onions. It has all these names where it's really just its own thing. It's just a scallion. That said, there is the other caveat that sometimes common onions, even before they become a spring onion, are pulled really, really early so they can actually be sold as scallions too. Now, that said, that's not super, super common, but it's not uncommon. And the difference between that is the scallion is this onion cultivar that will never ever produce a full bulb. It will only just be this tubular, cylindrical thing. Spring onions, depending on when you pull the onion, it can have the bulb or it cannot, because it's gonna eventually grow into a fully mature onion. So if you pull it when it's still pretty early, before it produces a bulb, it can be a little bit like a scallion, and sometimes they're sold that way. If you wait a little bit longer, where the bulb has formed but not completely matured, it's like this. It's a spring onion. So it's a little tender, you can't eat the greens like you would with a scallion, but it still kind of has a similar shape, right? And then if it goes to full maturity, it becomes a common onion. So that's the difference between those three things and why I think they kind of get confused. The other thing is green garlic. So this baby can be a little confusing if you see it in the store because there's like spring onions, green garlic, if you go to a farmer's market. So what the heck is green garlic? Well, garlic is also still part of the onion family, but green garlic, like a spring onion, is just pulled early. So it's not a fully developed garlic bulb. Like a spring onion, it's a little tender on the flavor, not as robust. So it can be a really great way to either get people who maybe don't like garlic, just like people who don't like onions, to introduce them to that flavor, or just to use it in different culinary ways. Both are lovely grilled. So just to recap, we have scallions, a complete cultivar of the onion family that never produces a bulb. We have spring onions, which are actually the common onion that's just pulled early. So if it's pulled early for a spring onion, that means the bulb has formed, but it's not a full onion. It's still really, really tender. You can't use the greens like you can in scallions. If it's pulled even earlier before the bulb is formed, sometimes it's sort of used interchangeably like a scallion, but that's less common. And if you let it go to full maturity, it's gonna be a common onion, which we all know what that's about. Then there's the chives, which are the only herb in the onion family, completely separate from both scallions and spring onions. They are never cooked. You only really want to use them as a garnish. And then lastly, we have green garlic, which is very similar to spring onions, as they're both pulled early before they reach maturity, and once again, just has those tender flavors. So if you like this video, hey, you know what? Give me a thumbs up. Hopefully you learned something. If there's something you want to know about, drop a comment below. And if you like to cook like I do, hey, I release new videos every single week, so please subscribe. I'll see you next time.